And turning now to the latest from Afghanistan, violence erupts as Afghans celebrate their 102nd Independence Day. Several people were reportedly killed yesterday after Taliban fighters opened fire at a crowd in Jalalabad. People were trying to raise the Afghan flag to commemorate the 1919 treaty that ended British rule in the Central Asian nation. The news comes amid further reports of deaths today as protests against the Taliban expand. Meanwhile, conditions at the country's main airport in Kabul are still dire. The U.S. continues to evacuate thousands of Americans and eligible Afghans still stuck there after the Taliban seized power. Roxana Saberi has the latest from Doha, Qatar.
President Biden said in an interview U.S. troops will stay in Afghanistan until they get every American citizen out, even if it means missing an August 31st deadline set with the Taliban. Some Afghan allies fear they'll be left behind. Chaos continues to dominate today outside Kabul's airport, as Afghans try desperately to flee their country. They first have to get through checkpoint after checkpoint, manned by Taliban fighters, some firing shots and beating people back. Then they face U.S. troops and barbed wire. For now, the runways are clear of civilians, and military transport planes have airlifted out around 5,000 people, mostly U.S. citizens and Afghans who once worked for the U.S. But with around 60 to 80,000 left, by President Biden's count, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin acknowledged evacuations aren't moving fast enough.
It's obvious we're not close to where we want to be in terms of getting the numbers through.
The military flights are first come, first serve.
Afghan-American Zohal Abdulrahman says her brother-in-law, who just got a U.S. visa, was heading to Kabul airport today when she lost contact.
We're really anxious to get him out of there as soon as we possibly can.
President Biden told ABC News all this chaos was not the result of bad planning.
But the idea that somehow there's a way to have gotten out without chaos ensuing, I don't know how that happens. I don't know how that happened.
So for you, that was always priced into the decision?
Yes.
I think they should have moved fast enough to begin with, right when President Biden announced that the U.S. was leaving.
The U.S. will soon have 6,000 combat troops on the ground to help with evacuations. But they're needed to defend the airport and keep it running, not to pick up stranded Americans or vulnerable Afghans. When are you going to sleep soundly again?
Till the Taliban are out of Afghanistan for good, forever. And God knows when that's going to be.
CBS News has learned the U.S. mission in Kabul is getting reports that the Taliban are blocking some Afghans with U.S. visas from getting to the airport. And the U.S. plans to open an additional gate there to get more eligible evacuees in faster. Laura?
Roxana, thank you. With me now is retired Colonel Christopher Kalenda. He's the author of the book Zero-Sum Victory: What We're Getting Wrong About War. He's also an adjunct senior fellow at the Center for a New American Security. Thank you for joining us. The State Department is working with the Taliban to facilitate the passage of eligible evacuees to the airport. What more should the U.S. be doing to ensure that they get those people out safely?
I think there are three things that need to happen. The first one is we need to Berlin airlift all of these folks out of Kabul and get them into Doha, get them to Kuwait, someplace away from Kabul, away from the chaos, where all of this processing can happen in a much more orderly fashion. So the faster we get people out, chartering aircraft, et cetera, to different places, it's going to reduce all of the tension at the gate in Kabul, which is showing right now on film. The second one is people need to all of the heated rhetoric, all the misinformation and fake news and motivated reporting that's coming out of Afghanistan, we need to treat with real skepticism, because what it's done is just inflaming this situation, and it's making Americans and Afghans less safe. And then third is we need to eliminate the poisonous HR letter requirement that the Trump administration imposed on visa applications. And I'd love to give you an example of that if you'll allow me.
Real quick, though, before we move on, when you say Berlin airlift, do you mean we should be dropping food, aid into parts of Afghanistan where the Taliban won't get that food and aid and instead Afghans can get to it? Or did you mean something else by that?
What I meant by that was getting lots of aircraft, civilian aircraft, 747s, A380s, into Kabul airport to move people out quickly. Now, we also do need to be working with Afghans on the ground to deal with the humanitarian crisis that's unfolding there. Over 20 million Afghans are facing acute humanitarian crisis, and that's something that we need to help Afghans deal with and not turn our back on the country.
What's so interesting from your perspective is that you fought the Taliban as a commander in combat. You negotiated with the Taliban in peace talks. So I'd like to know, what is it like negotiating with the Taliban, and how do you think the situation would be different now that they're in control?
You know, I lost 6 soldiers. 6 of my soldiers were killed in action. 6 of my paratroopers killed in action. Tom Bostic, David Boris, Ryan Fritchie, Adrian Hike, Jacob Lowell, and Chris Pfeiffer. It's hard. It's emotionally hard sitting down across from people who were a moment before or a week before were trying to kill you or trying to kill the people that you served with. And what I found in those moments is the importance of separating, creating space between emotion and action. I mean, right now, the results that we want to achieve are getting American citizens and the Afghans who stood by us and want to leave out. We want to be able to help alleviate the humanitarian crisis that's going on in Afghanistan. And we also want to make sure that international terrorist groups don't resume a presence there in the country. So all of the finger wagging and fist shaking that's going on right now, it's not helping a single American, it's not helping a single Afghan, it's not preventing a single Al-Qaeda terrorist from coming back to Afghanistan. So creating some separation between emotion and action is going to allow us to do the smart things that safeguard our security and do the right thing by people who stood by us.
Your listing of those names, those 6 paratroopers killed, I mean, I can feel the emotion I'm sure that is sticking with you every single day, and how I'm sure it must be frustrating, to say the least, to see what's developing in Afghanistan after so many American lives were lost, for us to sort of return to the way that the situation was 20 years ago with the Taliban in control once again. Where do you believe the future of foreign relations between the U.S. and Afghanistan will look like?
So I think, first of all, you know, I'm really, really proud of what we did in Afghanistan, what my paratroopers did in Afghanistan, treating tens of thousands of Afghans at our clinics, building schools and giving school supplies. I still remember I can still see in my mind the smile on kids' faces as they're taking their backpacks to school. And you know what? Nobody can ever take that away from me. Nobody can ever take that away from all of the veterans who served there so admirably. And I wish people would stop using veteran service as a football. The second thing is the Afghan people voted with their feet. They voted with their feet to reject the government that had been predatory and corrupt, had been stealing food and selling their ammunition and fuel in the black markets. They voted with their feet away from that government and to accept the Taliban. So the Taliban, I think right now, they're saying many of the right things, but they're having a hard time doing the right things. And one of 2 things is going to work out in Afghanistan. Number one is you're going to get Afghan political leaders come together to chart a path forward where Afghans have buy-in. And I think we need to work with whatever comes out of that, those sets of meetings, so that we relieve the humanitarian crisis and prevent terrorist safe havens from returning. The second scenario is much more troubling, and that is what I call catastrophic growth, where the Taliban ability to, or they grow beyond their ability to manage it, and they start inviting backlash against themselves. And if that happens, then you're going to get this warring fiefdoms problem in Afghanistan. You're going to get a return to a civil war, and that is the highest risk of terror safe haven coming back to Afghanistan. So, we as a country need to keep our eye on the ball and work together with Afghans to secure our interest and do the right thing by those who did the right thing by us.
Picking up on what you just said, that terror safe haven concern and the Taliban's relationship with al-Qaeda right now, if they do have a relationship at all, do you believe that they would allow al-Qaeda or another terrorist organization to train within Afghanistan?
Well, here's what the Taliban have told me, and I've negotiated with them on 2 separate occasions from 2011 to 2013, and then again from 2017 to 2018. And what they said was, hey, we were a government once, and we were cut off from the international community. And the result was a catastrophe in Afghanistan. And we don't want to repeat that experience. It didn't work out very well for us. So what they want is a relationship with the outside world, and in particularly with the West, because they know that that's where the aid and support that's going to enable Afghanistan to be successful is going to come from. Now, for them, the only way to get that is by working with other Afghans to chart a political path forward where all Afghans have buy-in. And then they've got to do the right things in terms of preventing terror safe haven and following the international declarations on human rights. So they've got a full plate right now, and they need to show that they're not like their crazy uncles in the 90s. That they're looking to govern responsibly and work together with other Afghans to do that.
Well, we hope that is the case. Colonel Christopher Kalinda, thank you.
Thank you for having me.